The old neon diner sign flickered against the gray afternoon sky. Rain hissed softly against the windows, tracing crooked paths down the glass. Inside, the air smelled of coffee, bacon grease, and thyme. It was the kind of place where stories lived quietly, buried beneath the chatter of truckers and the clink of spoons against ceramic mugs. At a booth near the back sat an old man. Broad shoulders, weathered hands, and a prosthetic leg resting stiffly against the seat. His jacket bore a fading patch, a skull stitched in black thread clutching a scythe. Few noticed it anymore. Few cared enough to ask. His name was Walter Briggs, and he had once been a man no one dared to forget. The bell over the diner door jingled, letting in a burst of cold air. A young Marine in dress uniform stepped in, brushing the rain from his cap. He was tall, sharp-jawed, and carried himself with the posture of someone who still believed in order and purpose. The waitress smiled automatically. "Coffee, Han?" "Yes, ma'am," he said. "And could I sit anywhere?" She nodded toward the empty booths. He turned and saw Walter. Their eyes met for a second. Something unspoken passed between them. The Marine hesitated, then walked over. "Sir, mind if I join you?" Walter looked up slowly, voice low and gravelly. "Long as you don't spill my coffee, you can sit wherever you please." The Marine smiled, sliding into the booth. "Name's Corporal James Davis, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines." Walter gave a single nod. "Briggs, Army. Long time ago." For a moment they sat in silence, listening to the rain. Then the Marine said, "You served in Vietnam, right?" Walter nodded again. "That's what they tell me." The waitress came by, refilled his mug, and left. "You know," Davis said, "my grandfather used to tell stories about the old sniper teams in Nam. Said some of them disappeared for days and came back with nothing but a rifle and haunted eyes." Walter let out a quiet chuckle. "Sounds about right." Davis's eyes drifted to the patch on Walter's sleeve. "That skull. That's Reaper 1, isn't it?" The old man's hand paused halfway to his cup. His eyes darkened, the faintest tremor running through his fingers. "Haven't heard that name in a long time." Davis leaned forward, almost whispering. "That was your call sign? Reaper 1? They taught us about that in sniper school. You were the guy who stayed behind in Hugh City, held off an entire company for 3 days." Walter's gaze went distant, like he was staring through the wall and back into another lifetime. "I wasn't alone. There was me and Lee, my spotter. Best shot I ever knew." He exhaled slowly. "They called us Reaper 1 because when our names came across the radio, it meant someone wasn't walking away." The Marine's spine straightened. "Sir, Walter raised a hand. "Don't sir me. That was a long time ago. These days I just fight arthritis and bad coffee." But Davis could see the truth in the man's eyes, the kind of truth that never fades, the kind that burns behind old scars. "Tell me something, Corporal," Walter said suddenly. "You ever pull that trigger and wish you hadn't?" Davis hesitated. "Once," he said quietly, "and I still see him sometimes when I close my eyes." Walter nodded. "Then you'll understand what I mean when I say being called the Reaper isn't something to be proud of. It's just what they called the man who survived." A quiet settled between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Outside, thunder rolled far away. Then the diner door opened again, and a burst of laughter spilled in. For young soldiers, off-duty, loud, careless. They took the booth behind Walter, still joking as they ordered beers. One of them, a big guy with a buzz cut, glanced over at the prosthetic leg and snorted. "Damn! Look at RoboCop over there," he said. Not quietly enough. Davis's jaw clenched. Walter didn't move. He just sipped his coffee. Another soldier chimed in. "Bet he's one of those old guys who tells war stories that never happened." Davis turned, his voice cutting through the noise. "That old guy was Reaper 1. The laughter stopped. "Who?" "Reaper 1, Davis said, his tone calm but sharp as a blade. "Sniper Team, Vietnam. You know that name because every Marine sniper school still talks about him. Because of what he did, you get to sit here and run your mouth in peace." The buzz-cut soldier frowned. You're serious? Walter looked up at last. His voice was calm, but there was iron underneath. Son, I don't need anyone to believe what I did. The men who didn't come home, they're the proof. The soldier's drink slipped from his hand, glass shattering on the tile. The entire diner went silent except for the hum of the neon sign. I'm sorry, sir, the young man stammered. Walter nodded once. You're forgiven. Just remember, respect isn't given. It's earned. But sometimes it's owed. The soldiers paid quietly and left without another word. Davis exhaled, tension easing from his shoulders. You handled that better than I would have. Walter smirked faintly. Anger's a young man's game. I traded mine for a quiet night's sleep a long time ago. They sat for a while longer, the storm easing into a drizzle. Then Davis asked, What happened to your spotter, Lee? The old man's expression softened. Hugh City, 68. We were covering a platoon trapped behind a temple wall. Radio got hit and we had no comms. Lee took a round through the chest while spotting for me. I dragged him back behind a broken wall. He told me to keep shooting. His voice faltered. He said, Don't stop, Walt. Not till they're safe. And then he was gone. Davis stared at the table, unable to speak. I called in mortars by memory, Walter said quietly. Held them off till the company got out. When they found me, I'd been awake almost 60 hours. They said I saved 52 men. He gave a bitter laugh. You know what I remember most? The smell of wet stone. That, and the sound of my rifle bolt. Neither of them spoke for a long time after that. When the check came, Davis slid his card across the table, but the waitress shook her head. Already covered, she said softly, nodding toward the counter where the soldiers had been. Walter smiled faintly. Guess they learned something tonight. As Davis stood, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, silver coin. Challenge coin, he said. For valor. I want you to have it. Walter frowned. That's yours, Marine. Not anymore, Davis said, placing it on the table. Reaper 1 deserves it more. Walter picked up the coin, feeling its weight in his palm. His voice was barely above a whisper. For all the ones who didn't make it back. Davis saluted him, sharp, perfect, and turned to leave. The door chimed as he stepped into the rain. Walter watched him go until the figure disappeared down the street. Then he looked back at the coin, turning it slowly between his fingers. The reflection of the diner lights glimmered across its surface like distant gunfire. He smiled, the kind of smile only men who've made peace with ghosts can manage. He whispered, almost to himself, Reaper 1, signing off. The waitress passed by and caught the words. What was that, honey? Walter looked up, eyes gentle now. Just saying goodbye, ma'am. Outside, the rain fell softer, almost like the world itself was listening. Moral of the story: respect is not a uniform, not a rank, not a patch. It's understanding that some men carry wars inside them long after the bullets stop flying. The bravest often sit quietly among us, unnoticed, until a single question brings their history back to life.